I grew up in a Christian home. My dad and mom were very active in the church. And for me, church and Christ and religion was all just rules-based. I had no personal relationship with God. I just went through and played the part. The years went on in high school. I became more and more rebellious while still playing the double life. I stopped going to church altogether, and I had just gone into my own sin, and that's where I wanted to stay. When I came down here, one of the very first chapels I was in, God just really got a hold of my heart. I stopped lying to myself. I stopped trying to convince myself that because I was born in a Christian home that I was just naturally saved. I realized that how bad of a sinner I was and how badly I needed Christ. The first year I was down here, I kind of church hopped, went from church to church. God led me to Heritage, and this year I really started coming every Sunday, mornings, nights. The growth I've experienced here with the friendships, the relationships I've made has been such a blessing in my life.
My family moved down here when I was in 4th grade. I've been at Heritage since. It's been great going through Link, Sigma, the college group now, Impact, and I've just really valued the consistent leadership that's been a part of all of those groups. Instrumental in all of that would be Pastor Matt and Pastor Abe, just really helping me in high school just solidify kind of what I believed, and I've also really valued the fact that some of the college leaders, I've been able to be with them since my time in Link, Brandon and Brent, especially they're all my years, and then just being able to be with them and continue to do life with them up in the college group has been something that I really enjoy. Something that has been really instrumental and that I've really learned a lot about at Heritage would be the means of grace, the word, prayer, and people, and none of those things alone is enough to sustain us, and we really need all three of those things. If you understand those early on and are grounded in them, then that's really where you begin to understand life as a Christian, pouring into others, your relationship with the Lord. I think a lot of times prayer is overlooked, and it's just kind of something we compartmentalize, and so the fact that that was emphasized a lot through Pastor Matt and others was very good for me.
I'm from South Texas. I live 10 minutes from the border. I grew up in a non-Christian home, and my dad was in and out of jail. My mom was a teen mom. When I was about 7 years old, we attended a Christian church back home, and that is where my dad got saved and where the rest of us, like within that year, got saved as well. My freshman year in high school is when I started attending Macedonia Christian Academy, where Juan and Chago Curling started that school, well, their mom started that school, and they're missionary partners here. The turning point for me spiritually was my junior year in high school. Chago had preached on, in order to be rescued, you need to be broken. And of course I prayed for that, and God obviously answers prayers. Just before our junior-senior trip, I had turned my back completely on God. And that week we had a series on Seeing and Savoring Christ by John Piper. And God broke me to my bitter end. And I'm very grateful. And soon after that, I started attending Redeemer Bible Church of the Valley, which Chago planted. So I came here to Greenville to come to school, and Callie Green actually introduced me to Heritage. And I started coming here. It was a very big change compared to Redeemer. Redeemer started off with maybe 50 people max, and then coming here to Heritage was just a big jump. I was a little bit nervous about the whole community aspect of it. But this past year, Jen and Matt Moreau, who are sponsors here in Impact, just started this thing that we call Brunch Club, and where a couple of us just go over to their house maybe once a month and just share and give updates on our life and just pray for each other and eat food, and it's kind of amazing.
Well, I've been at Heritage all 21 years of my life, and I went through Sunday school, Sigma, Link, Impact, and I've really enjoyed it so far. Going through those, I was mainly focused on what I could get out of it and not what I could give back to the church or even the group, the people that I was surrounded with. So I went to all the fun activities and never the service activities, and was mainly just focused on myself. The turning point for me was probably about a year ago. My dad came to me, sat me down, and said, I'm noticing a few things in your life that aren't consistent with how a Christian should be acting, and as your father, I really feel like it's my responsibility to talk to you about this. And he came to me in love, and I really appreciated that. This year I've been able to get involved in Impact and just plug in wherever there's a need, whether that be Brent asking me to print something or Brent asking me to set up stuff. I'm just happy to help out in whatever facet I can, and I found that there's a lot of joy in helping out others, along with the fun stuff that we do in Impact.
I first came to Heritage this year, and I just really loved being able to meet a lot of new people and just the unity and everything that was here. I have really enjoyed coming to Impact because one thing I really love is just the worship, both through music and through just being able to sit under the solid Word of God preached. It's really refreshing for me being able to come off of a really stressful week just with school and classes and projects, and just be able to totally just refocus my mind and sit under the Word of God and just have that time that I can worship. I have recently been able to plug in a lot with the worship team, and that's something that I've really enjoyed being able to do, just help lead the singing and just refocus our hearts and our minds on Christ.
I grew up in a Christian home, and I first started attending Bob Jones in 2007. And after 3 years of being in school, I decided to sit out due to financial reasons. And it was during that time of sitting out that I basically just tossed Christianity and God to the side. I just saw corruption in the church, wasn't a fan, and I was just fed up with it. And I basically just went to church to appease my parents because I'm the pastor's kid and that was what I was supposed to do. During those 2 years, I basically just started to backslide and got caught up in sin and selfish lifestyle. I came back to school in the fall of 2012. And when I came back, I only came back to get a college degree. I had no ambitions or desires to serve God whatsoever. Throughout that year, I was in a relationship, and it wasn't a very healthy one spiritually at all. And it ended in the second semester. And when it ended, I basically just started to sink pretty low and just felt overweighted with sin. And it was at that time that I realized that I needed to get my life back on track, and that it was time to stop playing this hypocritical game and actually start living for God. When I got back to school in the fall semester, it was the first Sunday to go back to church, and my friend needed a ride, so I came and I picked him up, and we came to Heritage, and it was Impact. And I came into it with a little bit of hesitancy because it was a new environment. I wasn't quite sure about it. Brent started preaching a series on the Christian and how to follow God through suffering. And as soon as he started the sermon, I realized that I needed to be there. And I realized that that was God's sovereignty at work, directing me to hear those messages, because that is what I needed to hear at the time. And just through the messages at Impact, through the preaching on Sunday mornings and the music, the Lord just really used all of that to direct me back to Him. And there was one Sunday morning where we were singing Arise My Soul Arise, and the lyrics just jumped off the page at me. And I was like, wow, just how it speaks of Christ interceding for us. And that is when it hit me. And I realized that because of Christ and the finished work of Calvary, regardless of the previous sins, regardless of the anxiety, regardless of the depression, all of that stuff is not there. And I can stand boldly before the throne of grace, and I can stand perfect in the sight of God.
I am an elementary education major, so I'm pretty much training to be around children and teenagers for the rest of my life. And I love that, and that's why I chose that career path. And one thing that Impact and Heritage has really helped me with is just showing that unity and that passion towards other people, and just really being that caregiver that I know God has called me to be. And for the rest of my life, I'm going to be in that ministry. And that's what I love most about Impact and just where God has called me.
For the future, this has really been an eye-opening experience for me. Impact has really given me the opportunity to realize that I need to be involved in the church wherever I am, and I hope to take that in the future, whether that be staying here at Heritage or moving out into the world.
Heritage has prepared me for the future by helping me to really get grounded in my standards and just knowing what I believe. With my major that I'm going to be going into, filmmaking, I'm going to have to make a lot of decisions. I'll be faced with a lot of challenges, and just being able to say no to certain things in order to maintain my testimony and in order to further the gospel. And so I'm confident in what I believe, and I'm thankful that Heritage could help get me there.
Some of the things that I've learned at Heritage is to find Christ in everything, in the trials and in the good times and in the blessings, and to seek Him in His Word as the main thing.
Looking forward, I'm really excited to return home and to show what God has been doing in my life. I'm really excited to come back next year with this church to see what God has for me in my future, and I just know whatever He has a perfect plan for me, and I'm excited and looking forward to see what God has for my life.
In the fall, I will be heading to China, and I will be ministering in a Christian academy over there, teaching history. And how Heritage and Impact has helped me in that decision making was just a couple of years ago I looked into joining the Peace Corps, but I realized that because of the work that God did in my life through this church, I now want to take that out and just share it with other people and show them the love of Christ and show them just the ministry of the gospel and how it's changed my life personally.